For just some of the images that I found, you know, again, there's some classic ones. I do kind of think that was photoshopped. I really, really hope that one was photoshopped. But you see other fails, things as, you know, download our app, but no, where do I download it from? What does it look like? If it ain't broke, break it, and they've smashed the bus stop up. And there's others on there that are also quite amusing. So what I really wanted to do really was just kind of go through some of the ways that I think companies are failing, some of the things that I've seen working with clients. I will name and shame some, but not others. So don't ask me too many interrogating questions, please. And the first way that I think most of us are kind of failing is actually to listen in the first place. And a kind of prime example of this is we were looking, doing some research around mobile payment products. So a lot of these companies were kind of talking about, you know, mobile devices, pins, chips, cards, Apple, Android. But actually their target audience, who are all kind of sole traders, whether they're in construction, beauticians, market traders, they're all talking about their job and what they love doing and art. And there was a massive disconnect between the kind of branded content these companies are producing and actually what their audiences are talking about. You know, there's a line that gets used a lot in marketing around fish where the fish are. Well, if your content isn't talking with your audience, then you're not fishing where the fish are. And that kind of brings you on to really just failing to understand as well. You know, there's lots and lots of talk around things like cognitive science and behavioural economics and things like personas and segmentation, but I don't think enough of us are really kind of defining what we're doing or defining our audience first before we're kind of delivering content into them. You know, there are companies out there where their core business is to produce products, but they're kind of producing the product first and then trying to figure out where it fits, rather than trying to define the product to the audience. And this is an example of just, you know, the kinds of data you can begin to get off the web. All this is doing is using data psychometric testing and brilliant. Brilliant. Right, back. Sorry about that. Yeah, all this is doing is taking, doing some psychometric testing and using data pulled from the web, and all of a sudden we can look at what trending are motives. So people hitting your site, you know, it's not just about bounce rates and how long they're spending on your site and where they're coming from and where are they geographically. It's actually about who are these people. You know, you can see here, and this is just a snapshot from one of our clients. We've got trending emotives, so we can understand that they're, you know, affluent providers. They've got money to spend. They're looking after probably their family. You can also begin to get an idea of brand preferences and then intent. What do they tend to do? What are the types of things they're more likely to go and do, whether in this case it's kind of a travel insurance intender or a vacation intender. So you can begin to really kind of get a picture of who these people are based in data rather than conversations or best guesses. And from that then we can look at how we can build out kind of really detailed specific personas which can really help push our kind of content to our audiences in the way that they're going to understand it. You know, the other one is failing to be strategic, and I know the previous speaker kind of spoke a little bit about that already. But one of the questions I got asked quite recently is, should we have separate strategies for different channels? And my answer is no, we shouldn't. We should have one strategy that fits across the entire business, and it's just nuanced based on the channel you're sitting in, whether that's the type of content it is or the tone of voice, but the strategy should always be aligned to whatever your business objectives are. So really, you know, when we're building out strategy, we're looking at our audience, at our audience's challenges and our brand challenges, and trying to work out a nice big fertile brief, hence the slightly bad graphic over there of fertilizer bag, and then working out how we can use that brief to dispel across all the different channels that we're kind of sitting in. And also to think about the customer journey as well. So in terms of content or the customer journey, there's always some form of buying process, a decision-making process going across all sorts of channels. And we really need to start thinking about what content's going to best fit that part of the buying process. Are we looking for awareness? Are we trying to drive people down to purchase? And what are the different types of content do we need to make that happen? And I think one of the biggest things most of you guys can probably go and do in terms of looking at your content as it stands today is go and do an audit of it. Go and see where your content fits across the entire business around awareness, evaluation and purchase, and actually trying to plot some of this content both across the buying process and then across your personas. And money down, you will find gaps in what you're doing at the moment. And then it's worth looking about how you can then fill those gaps. There's also a big thing around, failing to put any structure into what you guys are doing at the moment. A lot of companies aren't really thinking about creating editorial calendars over the quarter, so you can begin to find opportunities that might arise over the next 3 months and how you can build your content into them. Simple things like what marketing shows are going on, for argument's sake, and how you can produce content that can align your business with these events. So even if you're not here physically, you can be there virtually. And the other sort of side of the structure as well is being consistent with your content. So how you talk. If you're looking at your web pages, how are they structured? How are you kind of defining things like demonstrating an understanding for the customer needs first, and then how do you answer those customer needs, and then start maybe getting into things like benefits and features and all that other kind of stuff as well. And then the opposite, I guess, of strategy is to innovate. I think people think that innovation and strategy go hand in hand, and actually they kind of don't. Strategy is about providing guidance to your business and the things that you're trying to achieve and meet your challenges and your goals. Innovation is about trying and testing and seeing what works and then pulling back and trying something else. We've actually got an innovation lab in our agency, and that led on to us producing the Guinness Book of Records app, which came out at the same time the iPad launched. And from the Guinness Book of Records taking a chance and innovating within a 6-month period, they got 1 million. This is brilliant. That's a technology fail right there. They received a kind of £1 million worth of revenue over 6 months by kind of trying to take a chance with some of their content and pushing it into a new medium that hadn't even launched yet. So there are times when we need to start thinking about innovating. And Google do this really well. Their employees, 1 day a week, they're allowed to work on projects that are related to their core business, but it doesn't have to be related to their day job. So they can go away and do lots of other things to help them innovate. And this is Eric Schmidt's kind of innovation triangle, where 70% of the time is spent on core business activities, 20% of the time is spent on projects related to the core business, and then 10% of their time is spent on stuff that's completely unrelated to the core business. And they use this model to drive innovation. But it is the practical steps they have to take. They have to give employees that day to do what they want to go and do. We, as an agency, had to create an innovation lab and team that could go out and explore new technologies so that we're ready for them when our clients need them. Another one is failing to repurpose your content. I think as most marketers, we all love shiny new things the minute they kind of come around. And, unfortunately, shiny new things sometimes kind of lose their appeal a little bit. I know this being a young father, I guess. But we really need to think about how we can kind of look to repurpose our content a little bit more. I know of other companies where they've employed a guy to go out and get all the case studies they possibly can for their clients, so they can create reams and reams and reams of PDFs that people can download about their case studies. But they've not thought about, maybe we should use some video, maybe we should take elements of these case studies and push them across our social networks. And the thing is with, I guess, with repurposing content, it's also important to think about not just copy and pasting. And there was a term that somebody used with me called churnalism, which is basically the idea of churning out news articles that have already been posted somewhere else and putting them on your website and calling them original content. That's not original content. It's probably not going to get people to your website because they're probably consuming that information somewhere else anyway. So it's important that when you do think about repurposing your content, you are thinking about the way to change it, whether it's medium, theme, tone of voice. Another one for me is fragmenting your content as well. So there was a term apparently about 10 years ago called Fractal Marketing, and it's the idea of pushing a piece of content out there and giving people the chance to change it and then pass it on to their friends. Hands up who's used Elf Yourself. What one? Hands up who knows Elf Yourself. Wow, okay, so the people that have used it know it. I suppose that's a good thing. So Elf Yourself, if you go and have a little Google online, it comes around every single Christmas, and the idea is you can put your pictures of yourself and your friends into little elves, and they kind of dance around the screen in a funny Christmassy manner, and then you can kind of pass that onto your friends. Those that know Elf Yourself, do you know who did it? Hands up who knows who did it. Okay, so there's another one. One out of probably about 30 of you. So a bit of a fail, unfortunately. Elf Yourself was done by Office Max, who are a stationery company, but you'd have never known that. And I think Jib Jab have actually kind of taken it now. But that idea of giving people content that they can change themselves will help kind of your earned media channel in terms of spreading it. Just a little kind of explicit lyrics, kind of sensory parental guidance warning for the next couple of slides. But people are failing on the detail. That says flickering lights, by the way. People really are failing on the detail sometimes, and it's amazing. I mean, this is typographic, and this is actually content on screen. But it does get worse than that, and I'm going to just let us pause and take a moment on some of the hashtags that we're seeing out on the web at the moment. Yeah, amazing. So the Susan's album party, that's what it says, actually ended up trending. They took it down within about 2 minutes, but it started to trend internationally, that hashtag. They changed it to Susan Boyle's album party in the end, but by that point it was too late. And when you Google that hashtag word for word, I'm glad we're getting a few giggles, and when you Google that hashtag word for word or letter for letter, there's about 9,000 articles online alone about Susan's album party. And then the other one, RIM jobs, is actually research in motion. Again, how that got through is, I am amazed. And I know we're all kind of chuckling, and it's mildly amusing, but there is a slightly serious side to this, and this was actually came out yesterday, and it was E Online had obviously posted the article about Ian Watkins, but ended up putting H's picture on it. Now, they changed it pretty quickly, but that's a massive mistake to make. And then look at the ad placement. People need to think about the things that they're doing when they're doing it online. So that's, we have to look after our detail. We really have to look after our detail. But at the same time, we need to be happy with okay. Anybody know the Oreo Super Bowl case study? Hands up, anybody? Right, so for those of you that don't, Oreo were sponsoring the Super Bowl. There was a big blackout. They had a kind of social media control centre where they had a creative guy, they had a decision maker who could put some budget behind something should they need it, and they had a load of social listeners. Obviously, the blackout happened, and spikes in traffic around that kind of that conversation were seen. So they decided to create this little ad here and post it up online and put about $5,000 worth of spend behind the tweet. They got more reach than most adverts that were sitting between moments in the Super Bowl, which is one of the most televised kind of games in the world. So with 5 grand and a bit of money spent on resource, they actually did a better job of reaching an audience than the TV ads did. And actually, when you start looking at chasing perfection, it can really start altering kind of your reality. Does anybody know who this guy is? And that is actually a guy, by the way. It's not Photoshop or anything like that. This guy's called Justin Jedlick, who's had 90 cosmetic surgeries to make himself look like Ken, as in Ken and Barbie. But it does kind of, and I guess, so by reality, I mean your business objectives. So many decisions you make in your company, change that type, make it blue, whatever it might be. Do these actually end up affecting the outcomes? If Oreo had spent ages and ages trying to chase perfection, they would have never got that advert out, and it would never have had the impact that it did. And I think a lot of the media channels that we can now use, Vine, Instagram, and all these kinds of things, are making it a lot easier to be not so happy with perfection by just capturing the moment and kind of pushing it out there. The next one for me on the fail is failing to connect. And I'm not talking about connecting digitally or connecting socially. I'm talking about connecting emotionally. The IPA did a study of 880 campaigns over a 20-year period, which has pretty much taken us through 2 recessions. And they noted that marketing campaigns that are built around emotion are twice as likely to generate large profits than those with rational arguments in them. And these are just some of the emotions that we should all think about using. And when we talk about emotions, one of the obvious emotions is happiness, is to make people laugh, and you see a lot of that in the content. But the one that that's really captured my imagination, I guess, was the one from Dove. Has anybody seen the Dove campaign? A lot of the females are shaking their heads, which is good. But essentially, this campaign, they asked a person to describe themselves to a forensic artist. The forensic artist then drew them. Then they got a stranger in the room to describe that same person, and the forensic artist then drew them. And the pictures were not massively different, but there were clear differences. And what it showed was that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. While as an individual, we all think we're kind of a little bit awkward and inadequate and maybe a little bit ugly, but from a complete stranger's point of view, they painted a much more beautiful description of that person. And Dove worked really, really well at touching on feelings of low self-esteem and inadequacy, but answered the problem. So looking at how you can put emotion into your content is really, really important. I'm getting so bored of this. And the next one's fail to optimize. Okay, and we can all talk about responsive websites and the way we can kind of deliver content across multiple channels. But it is becoming more and more important. We've seen one of our clients jump from 15% mobile and tablet browsing on their website to 30% in a year. So if that doubles again, all of a sudden, tablet and mobile for them is going to be the majority of browsing on their site. So really important, and that's one way of optimizing. There's other ways of optimizing as well. This is just a diagram of mobile media usage patterns done by the IAB, and it kind of demonstrates when people are using their mobile phone. An example I've got of this is one of our e-commerce clients was sending out emails, and what they began to notice was they were sending out emails at 8 o'clock in the morning because they were getting a really, really good open rate because everybody's kind of on their mobile phone checking out stuff. But what they noticed was they were actually getting a better conversion rate from those people opening it on their desktop. So they moved their email to desktop, and while they were getting less of an open rate, they saw more conversion because they'd moved the timing of their emails. And there's other studies done around send time personalisation, and the idea behind send time personalisation is that when you open an email, that is the next time that we'll send you that to that time. So the idea is that the chances are, as a user, you're probably sitting there at your computer looking at email. That's the time you're comfortable with doing it. So if we send you that email at the time you're doing that last time, there's a good chance you're probably opening it the next time. And they've seen open rate increases on 13%. And then there's other things. Mobile, on one automotive study, they've seen mobile click-through rates for video around 13%, whereas on desktop they're at 5%. So how can you think about delivering video at the right time that your audience is engaging with your mobile device? And I guess the final one's kind of failing to measure. I think we all kind of struggle with this a little bit. You know, we talk about the fact there's so many channels out there. How do I see return on investment and all these kinds of things? But I think it basically boils down to, for me, to sort of 5 fairly simple measurements that you need to take across all of your channels to begin to be able to benchmark and understand where you see effectiveness in your channels. And these are reach, so that's how many people can you get out to. Engagement, how many conversations can you have through the content that you're producing. Response, how many clicks can you get, how many purchases can you get, how many subscribers can you get, how many leads can you generate. Advocacy is about how many shares of your content can you get out there. And the final one's effectiveness, where you look at cost per share, cost per lead, cost per sale. And if you can start to do these individually in each of your channels, so you do the same model for Facebook as you would for Twitter, as you would for email, as you would for anything else, and begin to really understand, you know, how much is this lot costing me, and where am I seeing real efficiencies. So that kind of wraps it up for me, really. It's about do listen, do understand, do strategy, do innovate, do repurpose, don't recycle, but do repurpose, do details, don't chase perfection, do connect, do optimize, do measure, do structure, and do fragment. That's it for me. Thanks very much. If you'd like to follow me, I'm at Brand Joe, and willing to take any questions, should there be any. I don't think there are any. Cool, thanks very much then.